Oregon has extended head coach Dan Lanning just before his second season. Nothing but good news for the Ducks. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. If you have not already, please like, comment, subscribe, rate, review wherever you listen to or watch this show. We just hit 2,800 on YouTube. I'm trying to get to 3,000 before the season starts. Can we do that? If you're watching and you haven't subscribed, please do help out. Lanning's contract extension, we have to talk about mascots. Yeah, I'm letting that simmer for a moment because it's 2023. We have to talk about a picture of a couple mascots. And then Oregon fans and Star Wars. What more could you ask for? So, before we get into it really quickly, I want to shout out Tim and Mon Sabai, who I ran into at the Black Butte restaurant, who I did not know ahead of time, but I ran into them there. I was just leaving, and they were taking one of the seats that I was occupying, and Mon said, "Hey, I watch your show all the time. I thought that was very nice, so I'm shouting you out on the show. Thank you so much for supporting the show, and whoever you are, thank you for doing that as well." So Dan Lanning's got a contract extension now that runs through 2028. I will be very honest here, as I always am with you. This was a little bit of a surprise to me, not because Dan Lanning isn't a good coach, not because Dan Lanning isn't someone who I want Oregon to have secured as long as possible, as long as he desires to stay in Eugene, but because it just felt like the timing of it came out of nowhere. But this has been reported by 24/7 and John Canzano. I think they're still waiting to totally finalize all the details of it, but the Board of Trustees is expected to approve it, and here's what it says, or at least what we know at the moment. The contract currently that he signed was a 6-year deal beginning in 2022, his first year as head coach, and now it runs through 2028. So I will save you the time of doing a little bit of math because I've done it for you here. That is adding 1 year onto the current contract. So he was in year 2 of a 6-year deal. Now he's basically in year 1 of a 6-year deal, once again, going into 2023. His salary for this year, they structured it in a way that it was $4.6 million last year. It was going to be $4.7 this year, and then continue to increase by a little bit year after year. That is expected to go up. We don't know exactly at this point in time what that number is, but Canzano's reported that it's expected to get him into the top 15 or 20 highest paid coaches in all of college football, but it was going to be, or is, I think, or depending on what the language of the contract is and when it'll kick in, $4.7 million for 2023, which as of right now would be the 5th highest in the Pac-12. That's under the older version of the contract, not the new one. So going into this season, he was set to be the 32nd highest paid head coach in college football, and as I said, Canzano's reporting that now the figure is expected to put him somewhere in the top 15 to 20. I think this is all good news for Oregon fans for a couple of reasons, and I think that it's fair that Lanning's salary be in that sort of range, that he's one of the 15 to 20 highest paid coaches in college football, because guess what? We as fans are expecting him to have Oregon as a top 10 to 15 program, program 10 to 15. That's the range that we're kind of shooting for. Some people are looking for 5 to 10. So having him higher than the 32nd highest paid coach in all of college football, I think makes a lot of sense. Because right now, could you look at the current college football landscape and say, okay, there are 31 coaches I would rather hire than Dan Lanning? For us, right now, in our situation, that is a definitive no. So I think that makes sense. But something else that I am definitely assuming, but I think is a reasonable assumption, is that the buyout in Dan Lanning's contract is probably going to increase. Like this move, along with, there was report a while back that Lanning had, begun a new construction project on his house that he was adding on to it, and people were looking at the idea of like, oh, is he doing that for recruiting or whatever? But anyway, the point is, when you add up little details like that, I think that you can look at where Dan Lanning is at and where he wants to be and say, yeah, okay, he wants to be at Oregon for the foreseeable future. Is that subject to change? Of course. It's college football. It's college sports. It's the professional world. Things can change a lot in many years' time. But this is not a guy who looks like he has his eye, kind of looking out at another job. He is not the man in that famous meme on Twitter of the guy holding hands with a girlfriend, but then taking a look at the other girl as she's walking by. Dan Lanning is not taking a look anywhere else at this point in time. But I'm assuming the buyout is going to go up. If an SEC team decided they wanted him one day, yeah, they could still probably pay it. They have a lot of money at those schools and within those athletic departments. But as Lanning said once upon a time, the grass is damn green in Eugene, and Dan Lanning is set up with the contract extension and the contract that he is now signing and they're working on finalizing to continue to make that the case. Now, the question I did ask myself when I saw this news was, did this come about because of the Auburn rumors? When the Auburn job came open last year and Brian Harsin was fired and, there was all the speculation and Lanning was reportedly one of the targets they had on a short list, understandably so, SEC background, great recruiter. There were reasons, Oregon was in the midst of the, 8-game winning streak. I don't remember exactly where we were at that point in time, but Oregon was looking very good and Lanning looked like an attractive candidate. Hadn't put together a full season yet, but still was looking like a potential target for that job. What I would say to that, and what I will say to that, is you can think whatever you would like. I don't know that it's directly a result of that. It could be. But it feels to me that if the Auburn discussions got so serious, if they ever did, and we're never actually going to know, that sort of stuff doesn't just get out. And, coaches and their agents and everybody, they know how to keep that stuff under wraps. But if the Auburn talks ever did get super serious, it seems to me that a contract extension that came about because of that, number one, would have been longer than extending by just 1 year. Number two might have been, putting him in the top 5 to 10 range of highest paid coaches in college football. And number three, I think it would have come about sooner. Now, you're welcome to think whatever you'd like. If you think that the Auburn rumors played a part of it, look, they might have. I don't think that's an unreasonable assumption. I don't think you're completely off the reservation with that. But I think this is just a move that Oregon decided to make, and maybe it was a factor, but to say it was a driving factor, I don't know that that's really the case, especially since the job has since been filled. So there's no, maybe there were internal conversations. I don't know, but I feel like that wouldn't have come out at the end of July. I feel like that's something that might have gotten done in January and February. But maybe this is also just kind of a better time to do the contract because recruiting is, always going to keep you busy, but it's not the same as it is in January leading up to signing day. But I felt like there were ample opportunities to sign this if it was a result of the Auburn rumors and wanting to make sure that he'd stay here. But I think that's, could be a component, but I don't think was kind of the whole thing there. I think it was just a matter of, look, Oregon is looking at what Dan Lanning is doing. They want to give him the security of, hey, we want you to be our head football coach. They like what they are seeing from him so far. He's recruiting well. I think that's a part of it. And I think that the way that this extension is going to set up and look is reflective of that. And, Dan Lanning still has room to grow as a head coach. Absolutely. He has admitted that. I think we all see that after one season. But yeah, the promise and the potential is absolutely there. You look at the recruiting efforts. They've been very good for the most part. I know we don't have a 5-star yet, but that doesn't mean there won't be one in the 2024 class. And we still have the number 12 class in the country. So it's not as if Oregon's 2024 recruiting efforts are just absolutely cratering here. But there's one other reason in particular that this is good news for the Ducks. Beyond, security for Lanning and the athletic department and everything like that, there's one element that kind of stands out to me above the rest as to why they matter. And LinkedIn Jobs stands out to me as well. Because these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. Like the way Dan Lanning was one of the better candidates Oregon probably could have got for their head coaching position. Heck, in 5 years' time, we might be saying he was the best candidate. And you can get that sort of candidate if you go check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Dan Lanning's contract has been extended. The quality of the show I can give you has also been extended because of the second segment SIP, vital to every single episode of Locked On Ducks. This reason, I think, is the biggest one as to why I saw this contract and was encouraged by it, because it wasn't unreasonable on either side to ponder it. I won't say I was thinking about it, but now that I've seen what it is and, where it's probably going to put Lanning compared to the rest of the coaches in college football, you're recruiting at a top 10 to 15 level. You're finishing, Oregon, I think, was top 15 and after they won the Holiday Bowl last year. Can double check that real quick. But when you're holding a coach to that sort of standard, it's more than fair for them to be paid accordingly. Oregon finished 14th or 15th, depending on which poll, college football playoff or AP you look at, after their Holiday Bowl win against North Carolina last year. So I think that that's fair. But the most encouraging element to me is that Oregon has an athletic department that is willing to pony up more money and pay whatever a good coach costs. Dan Lanning looks like a good football coach. It's still very early in his career, but when you're looking at what he's done so far and what it seems like he has the potential to do, Oregon didn't hit its potential in 2022. He still won 10 games. Not a lot of programs out there winning 10 games. Our program did, and it felt kind of like a down year and that everything didn't go the way we were hoping for. So the potential is immense. Do I think he can get Oregon to the playoff? Yes. Do I think he could get them back to the national championship game? You keep recruiting like this? Yes, I do. A lot of things have to go right. It takes a lot to get to that level. But are the indicators there early in his career that the potential for having that happen is very real? 100%. And as a fan, you should want to have an athletic department, and we're very lucky to have this at Oregon, that is willing to pay whatever coaches are worth. This is a reflection of what Dan Lanning is worth in the eyes of the athletic department, in his own eyes as a coach, and also in consideration of, where everybody else is at in terms of paying coaches in college football. And you get what you pay for. I would rather overpay for something that I know is really good than save $1 and go try to get a bargain coach somewhere. That's just not the way I think you should operate. Now, it's different because we're in college sports, but if you're talking about professional sports, okay, there are players that I wouldn't necessarily want to overpay for. But there are some players at the professional level that you do want to overpay for, and then you might have to, and it might not feel great. But then in a few years' time, you might feel differently. But this might not be, hopefully this is not the last extension that Dan Lanning ever gets as Oregon's head coach, because if he wins a Pac-12 championship this year, it'll probably get renegotiated again. That's the way these things tend to go. I'm pretty sure Mario got an extension after winning the Pac-12 in 2019. That's the way it goes. So hopefully there are seasons that we feel are extension worthy. I think this is good news for the Ducks. I don't see any downside whatsoever. It's not, putting financial strain on the athletic department. It's sending a message to Lanning. It can send a message to recruits and players and the community and everything like that. So I do not see any downside here. Wasn't expecting this news. But a welcome surprise. Like Palpatine said, we're talking about Palpatine later. A surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. So, drop your thoughts in the YouTube comments or hit me up on Twitter at Smalls_55 or at Locked On Ducks. DMs and mentions wide open. Thoughts on Lanning's contract or everything and anything else. Okay. So there was a picture yesterday. We're talking about mascots. I'm about to sound like Allen Iverson, man. Man, we talking about practice. That's how I feel. We're talking about mascots. Not the coaches, not the administrators, not the presidents. We're talking about mascots, man. So what am I talking about right now? Mascots, yes. The Instagram account for Brutus the Buckeye posted a picture with Puddles. And everybody went nuts. Lots of people on Twitter. Oh my gosh, what could this mean? Okay. This next segment, this next take of mine, should appear on Freezing Cold Takes if I turn out to be wrong. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm not. But, crazier things have happened in the world. People saw the picture of Brutus and the Duck, who are two of the most well-known mascots in all of college football, by the way, with the caption, "Big things happening," or "Big things coming soon," or something to that effect, with the BIG, that's basically the Big Ten logo. And some people appear to be interpreting this as, oh my gosh, could Oregon be going to the Big Ten? Yeah, I have to just let that marinate out there for just a moment. I have to let you process that people think that a major cataclysmic shift in realignment would get announced on the Instagram page of a mascot. That's what you think. You think that the Big Ten, which I'm going to get to in just a moment, has extended an invitation to Oregon. They've accepted, and the first thing they're going to do to let people know is have Brutus post a picture with Puddles on his Instagram. That's what you think. Okay. I don't hold that particular opinion. I have addressed this before. It's worth discussing again because everyone might not know. So the Big Ten delivered, yes, a very critical blow to the Pac-12 in poaching USC and UCLA. And for many, many, many months, I don't even remember a time where it wasn't like this, frankly. I have gotten comments, I have gotten messages and tweets and all sorts of stuff on Locked On Pac-12 that just assumes Oregon and Washington are going to end up in the Big Ten. It's just going to happen. Now, if an offer came, yeah, I think they would probably take it for various reasons. I don't want them to do that. I pray that never happens. I don't want them to do that. I didn't want USC and UCLA to leave. I didn't want Texas and Oklahoma to leave the Big 12. Everything was just fine as it was. It wasn't broke, but people decided to start fixing it. And I have a problem with that. But Oregon and Washington have I hear it every single day from several people. Well, when Oregon and Washington go to the Big Ten, what is this when? That is an if there, friends. That's a big if. So the Big Ten has expanded with USC and UCLA. If they were so dead set on inviting more West Coast schools, notably Oregon and Washington, or Stanford and Cal, some combination of those schools, whomever. If they were so dead set on that, I'd ask you this question. What in the world are they waiting for? The Pac has no position. They still don't have their media deal done. Big Ten's got the most lucrative media rights deal in the history of college sports. The Big Ten, I have long held this opinion. The Big 12 doesn't have the power to tank the Pac-12, or else they would have done so already. The Big Ten, however, could go into, one of the submarines from the new Mission Impossible movie, fire a torpedo, it hit the bottom of the boat that is the Pac-12, and then that thing would sink faster than the Titanic. They could do it anytime they want. But guess what? They don't want to right now. That is what every indication has been. Because who votes on realignment? This is going to my gravestone, by the way. Who votes on realignment? Presidents vote on realignment. That's going to be on my gravestone one day. Spencer McLaughlin, 1997 to... how long do I want to live? We'll just say 90 years. 1987. Is that right? Yeah. 1987. Let's say 90 years. That's a good solid run. He talked about sports a lot, and then the quotes, president's vote on realignment. That's all I want on my gravestone. That's it. Because what a lot of people don't seem to understand is that presidents vote on realignment. And Kevin Warren, the former commissioner of the Big Ten, wanted to go for the kill shot. He wanted USC and UCLA, and then he said, let's go get the rest of them. Let's form this big mega comp. And the president shut him down, and they said, no, we're good. We like this move. We want to make this move, but we need to see how this works first. And that is what every indication, and I've talked to people who've covered the Big Ten before, and they have told me the same thing. And that's that the Big Ten presidents right now are not on board with further expansion. They could be one day. That is something to keep in the back of your minds. I'm not telling you it could never happen. I'm telling you right now, every indication has been they don't want to go further west at this point in time. So it could happen one day. It's not impossible to foresee a world in which that takes place. But if the Big Ten presidents don't want it, then guess what? It won't happen. And by the way, Kevin Warren, the commissioner who wanted more West Coast schools, he is no longer the commissioner of the Big Ten. He went to go be an executive with the Chicago Bears, and now they have Tony Petitti in there, who is the chief financial officer, I believe, for Major League Baseball. So, conference realignment, I don't think it's going anywhere in terms of will we always talk about it? Will it always be in the back of our minds? Yeah, USC and UCLA broke the rules. They broke the rules even more than Texas and Oklahoma. They broke geography rules. They broke historical matchup rules, connections with other schools. You may not know this, but Cal is actually going to receive some money from UCLA because they are leaving the conference in what has been dubbed, quote, calimony, which is pretty hilarious, frankly, because UCLA and Cal, which is UC Berkeley, have had historical ties, and UCLA is now breaking that arrangement, so they're going to have to pay Cal some money. But it's going to be worth it for them because they're going to the Big Ten and they're going to make a lot more money over there. So I understand it. But back to the original point here. No conference realignment move is going to get announced by Brutus the mascot and Puddles posting a picture together on Instagram. I think we would have more serious indicators than that. Not Rob Mullins talking on the record about how he's more confident than ever that the Pac is going to get the deal. And look, maybe he'll have to go back on those words really soon. And people who want to go to the Big Ten, not me, but some people do, maybe they'll be really, really happy about that sort of stuff. But that move does not appear to be on the horizon, and I would pump the brakes on Oregon's going to the Big Ten because Brutus and Puddles posted a picture together. For all, my best guess is, there are two guesses here. A, future matchups between Ohio State and Oregon, could be. They kind of owe us a home game at Autzen Stadium, which was the backdrop for the photo, by the way, because they were supposed to come to Oregon in 2020 for the COVID year, but then that never happened, of course, because of COVID. So Ohio State coming to Autzen Stadium is something they kind of owe us at some level. Not exactly sure what all the contracts look like, but typically it's a home and home, not we go there and then nothing else happens, right? We're going to Texas Tech this year. Texas Tech comes to Autzen next year. That would be my best guess. Another possibility is Brutus and Puddles, who are probably the two most beloved mascot heads of Lee Corso, whose time on College Game Day is limited, shall we say. His role has continued to diminish as the years have gone on and he's just gotten older, and he's a beloved figure. They could be planning something for that. Those would be my top two guesses, but not Oregon going to the Big Ten. So let's go back into the mailbag here. Again, YouTube comments or hit me up on Twitter at Smalls_55 or at Locked On Ducks. Love the questions you guys asked. Loved running into Tim and Mon earlier at the Black Butte restaurant, and I would love to run into more of you out and about in the world someday. If you ever see me, please come say hello. By all means. I promise I'm friendly. I don't bite. usually. Only on Tuesdays. Okay, so Dylan asks, Spencer, what can Oregon fans do to help the team and coaching staff be more successful and get the team into the top tier? Like being the loudest fans again, what more suggestions would you have? So, number one, first and foremost, you make Autzen Stadium a place that nobody wants to go play, including non-conference opponents who say, no, we don't want to go up there. We don't feel like we're going to win that game. That's the first thing. That is the most important thing, is provide a home field advantage. But there are other things as well. When I look around in the world of social media, internet, mass media, and everything like that, fans are everywhere. And I love fan engagement. It's what drives, this entire show. It's kind of how this whole ordeal works, is I am trying to find as many Oregon fans as possible to come watch the show, listen to or watch it, engage with me, talk to me, and everything like that. And I love it. It is one of my biggest joys in life. It honestly is, getting to do this show and getting to interact with all of you. One thing that I would say fans can do is do not act in a way, online or in person, and I've seen this in both ways from Oregon fans in the past several years, that make the school or the program or anything affiliated with this look bad. Don't say stupid stuff. Don't act in stupid. Nobody wants to be those sorts of people. And look, you're never going to be able to control every single fan base. I'm not suggesting that you can. But you as a fan, act in a way that is the best version of a sports fan that you can possibly be. Because the fans help paint an image of the program. They are a reflection of what takes place on game days, at visits and everything like that. Fans aren't necessarily involved with visits and whatnot. But when you're on campus, when you're out and about in the community, all of that stuff can factor in. So be the best version of yourself as a sports fan. The other thing too, there are some people who donate to the university or to the program. That's great. If you can do that, awesome. If you can't, not a necessity at all. Oregon's got plenty of money, but I'm sure there are some people out there who, are longtime graduates and have, had donations to the school in the past. All of that is wonderful and fantastic. But another thing too, kind of in the spirit of what I was just talking about, is I would hate to see Oregon fans bad-mouthing individual players. I think that's a bad look for the school, and recruits can see that sort of stuff. Think about Zadavian Sims. I'm not saying that Oklahoma's program is going all the way downhill because of this, but would I have liked it if Zadavian Sims had chosen Oklahoma and then there were Oregon fans on message boards who were going out there and running the kid down, saying he was terrible, no good? No. That's not helpful. That's not productive. That's not good. So don't be toxic. Don't be derogatory. Don't be negative. Be the best versions of yourself that you can possibly be. And the other thing you can do, more than anything, is show up. Show up to game days and go to other sports when you can. Go to the baseball games. Go to basketball games. Like Dana Altman this past season talked several times, including in his post-game presser, about, man, we got Wisconsin in here, Power 5 opponent in the NIT. And look, I know it's the NIT and such, and we only had 3,300 fans. He's got kind of a point. There are a lot of programs in the country that it wouldn't matter who you're playing or when they're playing, and they're going to pack the house. So instill a culture of showing up, supporting the programs, and being the best version of sports fans that you can possibly be. And you know who my favorite non-Oregon sports fans are? Utah. I love Utah fans. They are passionate, they are rabid, and they are really polite. That's what you should strive to be. So, all right, let's get to a Star Wars question to end today's show. This is today's fun question. Grant asks, hello, Spencer. Hello. I know it has been a few months, but don't worry. I've still been listening to the show when I can. Since I've heard you say before that you're a Star Wars fan, fact check true, I'm hoping you'll like this question. If the Oregon Ducks are the Rebel Alliance, who in the Pac-12 is the Galactic Empire? Which players or coaches in Oregon football history are certain characters? I'm going to take 3 from the Rebel Alliance and 3 from the Galactic Empire. Thanks so much. So right now, USC would be the Galactic Empire, but I also have news for you. In the new look Pac-12 or Pac-10, I'm pretty sure we are the Galactic Empire now. Like, starting in 2024, I don't know if there's a team that everybody else will love to hate or dislike or root against as much as us. I really don't know who it would be. Right now, it is definitely USC. So let's operate in that world. Current players and coaches, I think, historically you can do all that sort of stuff, but I think current players and coaches is the best way to do this. So let's start with the bad guys there. Palpatine, the one behind the curtain pulling the strings, is USC's president, Carol Folt, because all of this Pac-12 tumult and chaos and uncertainty and doubt could have been avoided if USC hadn't been at the center of the realignment stuff to move to the Big Ten, but also if they hadn't shut down realignment talks within the Pac back in 2021. And USC led the charge on that. There's a piece in Sports Illustrated about it. More than one school was on board with not expanding, while some schools wanted to expand, but USC was leading the charge there. So she's Palpatine. Darth Vader, that would be Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley's right-hand man is Caleb Williams. That makes him Governor Tarkin. So, on the Oregon side of things, Luke Skywalker, the wise centerpiece of the story and today's show, that would be Dan Lanning. Han Solo, the cool, wanna be him, big character, guy that people know. Some people, he can be a little polarizing. He's got enemies in the galaxy. He's got friends in the galaxy. Yeah, that'd be Bo Nix. And Leia, the natural partner for Bo Nix or Han Solo, the person that goes well with him, that complements him, that make a dynamic duo. Who does that with Bo Nix? I'm going with Troy Franklin here, his number 1 wide receiver for the upcoming season. I love these questions. Please keep them coming. YouTube and Twitter, always. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.